You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the May 6th meeting of the Michigan City Port Authority Commission. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
To the Michigan City Port Authority Board of Directors meeting, May 6th. I call the meeting to order, and I'm looking for approval or corrections to the April 22nd meeting minutes.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to jump right into comments for public. Chuck and Julie, do you want to?
Yeah, good evening, gentlemen. We have secured our insurance with General Insurance. General Insurance was emailing everything to the Port Authority for their records. We completed the vendor application, and I think that's about all that you were required us to do, correct?
And then pay.
Yeah, of course, we have to pay the $125. We were going to get an extra pass, what do they call it?
The
Fob.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in case, that way she's got one and I got one, and someone's coming down and picking her up, so yeah, that's,
Is that?
yeah.
Did we get that information from the
I
attorney?
believe so.
Okay.
Did you already turn that all into Marion, the office? All your.
I have it right here, I can do that on the way out.
Okay, all right, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have our attorney look at it.
Yep.
So just drop the vendor application on? That's what we have is a vendor application.
And you said they emailed the declarations page, General Insurance did?
General
Okay.
Insurance, so they're going to email directly to you.
To me?
To
The office.
Or
Probably to Mary Ann then?
Yeah. Okay. And if you want to leave that with Joe right now, that's fine.
Yeah. That's the application. Let's look at these. I don't know if you needed a copy of the business license from the state.
Yeah, I can put that in the file.
Okay.
and is there anything else you require? So we just kind of wait to hear from you at this point, correct?
As far as Joe doing all the check and balances, everything, and Mary Ann covering everything, I don't know if anyone else. Like I said, our only concern was not having any bags laying out onto docks or piers, and
Sure.
so that was the main concerns, I believe. Anybody else have anything on that?
One of the things that we talked about was maybe storage inside of the
Laundry room?
laundry room. But has that been resolved, or are we still talking about that, or what?
Well, I think we can do that if it becomes necessary.
Right. For boat owners that don't want us to unzip their boat and land in there and take it out, then we have that second option.
Yeah, just our main concern is that we're not responsible for anything in between. That's in between you and whoever decides to do your laundry coverage. So that's the main concern. So
Did someone mention last time we were here about, do you have email addresses for all the boat owners, or is that something?
I think
that's something we can blast out your information as far as the boat owners giving their email. We'll attach it to hey, if you want to reach out directly, that way they have to reach out to you with their email address.
Sure.
Which would work out great for you guys. So, but yeah, once everything's covered, we'll be glad to send out a blast about the information. And then, once we approve it, then you can put them up in all the restrooms.
Yeah.
So you're more welcome to do that too.
Okay.
Then we also talked about, we had a couple of bulletin boards around, to maybe that colored flyer that you have.
Okay.
If you're leaving at the office sometime, they'll make sure they get into the bulletin boards.
All right. So we'll wait to hear from you.
Well, so, yeah, Joe, once you go over the documents and everything, just
Contact Marion.
contact Mary Ann and stuff, and we should, if all the documents are in order, we should be able to vote on this at the next meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
right.
All set?
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No problem. Mr. Freeze, you have anything for us today?
No, I do not.
Nothing today? Okay, well, moving on. Reports from the harbor master.
All right, well, I have a pretty boring report tonight. So we're in the middle of launching boats. That's been pretty steady. We've also been doing a lot of dock lowering. The water is down a little bit from last year. Depending on the day, it could be more than a little bit. So we lowered 5 out of 6 last week, and we did a handful the week before. So that and some routine maintenance stuff is what we've been doing. So unless anybody has any questions, did you want to cover Colin, or you want me to?
You take care.
All right.
You talk to me.
Previously, we had talked about having Edgewater come down and do some depth measuring in the creek. We like to have a standing permit with the Corps of Engineers. So related to that, they need quantity and all that kind of stuff.
This relates to dredging.
Right, dredge permit, yeah. That doesn't mean they're gonna come and do it, but at least we have our ducks in a row. So it looks like Edgewater can come down the week of the 20th to do some soundings and depth things. If their schedule changes and they can get here sooner, they'll be here sooner. So that's my update on that. So unless anybody has any questions, I'll let it go at that.
I have one, but unrelated to that, and that is on the dock lowering. We were previously discussing what rate we were gonna charge for the second.
Yeah, we're gonna cover that.
Okay, all right, great. All right,
Yeah, we needed a key person to be here,
okay.
so not a problem. Anything else from Mr. Frank?
How long does it take them to do that? Dredge, or the survey?
Oh, I would think probably an hour and a half, 2 hours. It depends on how many places he wants to check. Right, normally we just load up on the barge or on our little skiff and just go around, and he does a sampling. They have a GPS enabled stick, and you just put it in and hit the button and it tells you, and it just depends on how many points they want to hit and where they all are. Yeah, but it shouldn't take too long.
Right. Mary Ann's out this evening at the doctor's appointment, so we're gonna move on to Mr. Ferguson, budget and financial oversight, review and approval of the bills.
I've got a couple things briefly. Just take a look at the bills. Just the first page, everything's pretty self-explanatory on here, I think. For Dunker Sloot, there's accounts payable. It's page 3. We have there, that's, as Tim said, that's 3 or 4 easy ports, docks for the jet skis. Coming down, some advertising for $5,000. You see there, pretty straightforward. Flex Pack. I'm not familiar with what Flex Pack other than it just says household supplies. It's just security, NIPSCO, fuel for resale, security, minor things, Stevens Marine, lawn service, plus the EFTs of a little under $3,000, pretty self-explanatory of those on there, on page 2 there. I think really that's really all that needs to be updated on that. I'll just make a motion that we accept the bills as stated for a total of $63,331.62. Anybody has any questions? Let me know.
So you're adding the totals on page 1 of 1.
Yeah, 1 and then 2.
To page 2.
And 3. The third page is included on the summary of the 8840.
Okay. I got you.
Nobody got any other questions, I'll second the motion.
And then all good, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're paying bills. Do you have anything else, Sam?
Yes, just briefly, I had passed out last year's final results. I'd like to talk to Marianne. I think I'd like to see if we can update that with a little additional information. The results that show it, they're good, they're the right numbers for the actual. I'd like to show a little bit more information as we have shown in the past. So if you have any questions, I'll entertain them and pass them forward, but I would like a couple of weeks to update that is all. Just a little more information. Yes, sir.
I would like to sit in with you on that because we got to figure out a way to get our operating fund up. It's awfully low.
The operating fund or the capital fund?
The fund we use for projects.
Right, the capital fund.
Capital.
Down further on that front page, it does show that there's like 800,000 also. It just hasn't been moved over at the time. Give me a
I didn't
second.
see that one.
CDs, there's 400,000 there in additional CDs. It's the move over from last year to this year that hasn't made it paperwork-wise into our capital account yet. It's in a limbo right now, making a little better interest. So it's there. It's what we had planned to have
But you
happen.
didn't list it though.
Pardon me?
You didn't list it
Yeah, because it hasn't matured.
in the capital.
No, it's not, because it's still under a different accounting line item. As soon as she and I decide what we want to do with it as far as interest-wise, we can do something with it, and it'll eventually go up into capital. Just give us some time. It's there, it's available.
Okay. Because right now, there's not too many projects we can do with what we got there.
No, I mean, I don't want to talk bluntly about numbers, but we're making the progress towards this that we talked about all of last year. How much, what we wanted to move over from our normal operations between what we brought in versus what it cost for the year. That came out to be right where we wanted it to be. We moved that money in temporarily into a CD. We'll move that into the capital account as soon as we decide.
When does a CD come due?
Pardon me?
When does a CD, is there
I do
certain-
not, I don't have that in
Oh, you
right in
don't
front of
know.
me.
Okay.
It's, all this stuff happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I just haven't discussed that in depth with Mary Ann.
Well,
That's
if you
all.
have it, send it to me, would you?
Excuse me?
If you have that, send it to me.
Sure.
Okay? All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're looking for a maturity date.
Mhm.
Yeah. I doubt if it's any more than 5 months from now, but I'll find out, because we wanted to do more of a shorter term than a longer term in order to process where we wanted to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to do projects.
Yeah. Ready to do projects, we don't have any money.
There's plenty of money. I wouldn't want to.
Well,
have the public-
any project we do from now on, we want all the commodities in our hands before we start pulling stuff apart. And we learn that lesson.
Yeah, we understand. And
Okay.
again, when we get Colin's information back, we'll know, and we can list priority of the projects we're talking about for the next couple of years. We can start plugging money into the various ones that we feel we need to do.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah, that'll be right up your alley.
thank you.
Yeah. That's all I have.
All right. Moving forward, Mr. Haynes, claims and insurance.
I have nothing to report.
Port operations, everything's just kind of going smoothly. You know, we're fired up for everything. I've heard some good things from random people about the extra security that's going on, that a lot of people that are seeing it, they're saying that's good stuff, good things about it. So even some of the pickier folks that have been, lost their own car in their own parking lot, they're even mentioning how they see the difference. So that's good. That's all good. Really, that's the only thing I have right now, because we'll cover that in old business. So, Mr. Messina, Board of Communication and Special Events.
Talking with some of the voters, and I think I brought it up last meeting, that we were waiting for a compressor or something for an ice machine. Has that come in?
Yes.
That have been installed?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do they
I'm
have
just not
ice?
paying the vendor.
I'm sorry,
I'm just not going to pay the vendor.
do we have ice at the gas tap?
Yes.
They're working too. And when does the general store open? Or the, what do they call
I believe they're aiming for May 16th.
Yeah.
it? Is it?
It's always been the middle of May before.
Okay, because I was just asked that question, so
Yeah.
that was confusing. That's all I have written down, unless anybody has any questions, comments for me.
Good fishing, that.
Fishing was busy this weekend, and the gas truck was down here, I think Sunday morning even, twice, filling up, so we didn't have any problem with fuel or diesel. Probably see more and more diesel boats, motors.
That's good, we made 5 cents on gas.
But, we did get the big classic tournament in. I guess it's successful, our numbers overall were up. Fishing was good for some and not so good for others. But that's kind of the way we like
Yeah, it
it
works,
too.
yep.
Yeah, very successful.
Good. Very good. Anything else?
I have nothing unless anybody else has anything.
All right.
When's the next tournament?
Next thing I think is the Shriners that come in. Yeah, that'll be in a couple of weeks. And that's usually a pretty busy weekend. They start like Thursday, Friday, more so than the weekend.
Okay. Nice.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Master Planning Special Projects, Park Liaison.
I have nothing to report today.
Nothing.
Phil, was there anything at the meeting that I missed that I should report on? No? Okay, thank you.
They did a speedy job getting the pavement done around the edges here.
Yeah.
So that's much better, that's for sure. All right, Mr. Safer is advertising public relations.
The only thing I had was we paid the bill on the Singing Sands donation, saw that, so that's done and taken care of.
That actually takes care of all the summer events except for the boat races, so you know. So,
Okay.
yeah. So we have we'll be on all the city events will be part as a sponsor.
And then I wanted to bring up something. I ran into Vic from Harbor Country, and he was talking about, I think he's working, Tim, you might know, with the park department on signage. Coming over the bridge where you make the U-turn to come our direction. He's proposing having a sign done there, directing people to him and to other areas.
Right.
One thing I brought up to him that I think could benefit, and he already had the idea as well, is I think Base Camp should be involved in that. From the standpoint, I know there are, they lease from us, but a lot of people don't know that they're really there. And they could use some signage. So I don't know what kind of influence we could have on that with the park department.
It depends on placement too, where they actually want to put the sign. 'Cause
Right.
we have control some areas we don't.
Sure,
So
sure.
but yeah, there's nothing opposing to it, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
The better he does, the better we'll do.
Comment?
Well, with that, I think probably somebody should go and attend a park board meeting and
Okay.
discuss that with him.
Yep,
And I don't know if you want to,
I'd be happy to, since I do the advertising side. I'd
okay,
be happy to do it.
yeah, probably. Then when's the next park board meeting? Go ahead, Bill.
We talked to Vic at our last meeting. It pretty much has been determined where he's going to put them up there. We had some questions about what the sign was going to look like, the size, and rather than have a whole bunch of words with a lot of signs, he's going to go to pictures and directions. And the camp and Port Authority, they'll all be recognized. It's just a matter now, he's got to decide what size. We didn't have any problem. Well, I mean, we don't want a 6x4 sign. But a sign he's going to design, and then he'll bring it to us next week.
Okay.
Yeah, we discussed it pretty good.
Is he talking just maybe one location for the sign, or will there maybe be another one at the park entrance and at the
We'll
U-turn?
open it up to him.
Okay,
But I think there's going to be more than one.
okay. I think that'd be good.
You might want to coordinate with Mary Ann and Tim, whatever you do by yourself.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you, Phil.
That's all I have.
All right. Then the attorney's report, Mr. Zachner.
Thank you, Mr. President. This morning I circulated by email and then today handed out hard copies of the proposed changes to the Board of Directors procedural rules and regulations. If you've had an opportunity to look through it, you'll see that many of the changes which are reflected as additions in red, and then deletions as red strike-throughs are stylistic. However, there are three what I would consider more substantive changes that I'm proposing. The first is at page 25, which would be the second page of the handout, and that is toward the end of the first section at the bottom of Article 4. Board members must meet the residency requirements set forth in Indiana Code 810-553 at the time of their appointment. That is the statutory requirement that at the time of the appointment, the board member be either a resident of the city of Michigan City or a resident of LaPorte County. And I know in the past, there have been some issues where persons have been considered, although not appointed, who lived outside of those two areas. Now, once they're appointed, if they move, that's fine. You've met the statutory requirement when you were appointed. But at the time of the appointment, really that's a matter for the mayor and the city council, but I think it makes sense to reflect in our rules and regulations that we can't seat somebody who doesn't comply with the statutory requirement. The second is at page 26, and that is, there was talk at the last meeting about essentially, I think, disbanding the DOT committee, or at least not holding the meetings. And so toward the bottom, there was language, there shall also be an ancillary voters committee consisting of at least one representative from each of the docks at Washington Park Marina, at least one representative from Trail Creek and Spray Point. The group shall meet with the voter communications committee, whatever that group feels dialogue is required. I don't know if we're going to continue to have the DOT committee. So if we're not going to have the DOT committee, I don't know if we want to have the ancillary voters committee. But if we don't, then it probably makes sense to take that out. And then at page 28 is the third and final proposed change on a substantive level, and that is what I styled as Article 13A regarding the board attorney. And I think this is a suggestion that the president made and I concur with, and that is the Port Authority's board attorney should not be serving on other municipal boards or other boards or for other entities or clients if it would present a conflict, an appearance of a conflict or possibility of a conflict or obviously an actual conflict would have to be avoided. But to the extent that there are other commitments that would prevent the board attorney from attending our regularly scheduled meetings, that's a conflict, and that should not be, the board attorney should be first and foremost beholden to this board and not to other boards, such that taking on additional work for another entity or another board would prevent the board attorney from attending these meetings as they are regularly scheduled. So those are the proposals that I have. Mr. Manor caught a couple of things, one of which was on page, on page 27. The statute has been changed now with respect to executive sessions, and it makes perfect sense. Now, in executive session, you can talk about implementing security systems. So it says up above, executive sessions may be called to cover only one of what I now changed to these 4 subjects, because now there's A, B, C, and D, as opposed to the 3 that were there before. So Mr. Manor pointed out I left 3, it should be 4, so I've made that change. And then at the very last page, I've updated in the current version, the president is Mr. Gray, the vice president is Mr. Manor, and the secretary is Mr. Messina. So in the next version, those changes will be reflected. If anyone has any other changes, I'd be happy to incorporate them in and then present those as a final version for the board to consider and vote on at the next meeting. And then my plan is to, at each subsequent meeting, I'll have another, I think I'm going to do the ethics policy next. That one's a little bit difficult because that is really based on the cities, and I don't know that I'll have many changes, but I would like to go through that and just see if we can tighten up the language, and then, if necessary, insert some things that are germane in particular to our circumstances as opposed to those that are generic to the city. That's all I have.
Well, I'd just like to make a comment publicly that I think you've done an amazing job on this, and it all makes sense to me.
Thank you.
With the few changes that we've made, you've streamlined it, which is really easier to read.
Less clutter.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it says the same stuff.
Right.
So I really appreciate your efforts.
Nice job. Anybody have any other questions, comments?
I would. I talked to Joe earlier and said I was going to email something, but I think if I could just get it out and then kick her on, it might be straightforward. I don't know. When we vote on things, right now we're missing a member. And so when we vote on things, we need a majority of at least 4.
But we need a quorum.
We need a quorum. Okay.
And then, if there's a quorum, we need a majority of that quorum. So we would need 3 votes out of the majority of the quorum of 4.
If we have a quorum of 5, we need 3.
A majority, correct.
If we need 6, we need 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, unless it comes to a pricing matrix that affects somebody in the marina like me and Dan,
Right.
it would be the best out of 4, because we have no vote.
Right, then we would have a quorum still. There are 6 here today, so we would have a quorum even if there are 2 that cannot vote because we're voting on something.
I'm clear on that, but if we have, just say we just had 5 people come to a meeting and we had something we really needed to vote on and it was known ahead of time, but we needed to take care of. We have 5 people. Does that require a majority of the whole board?
Once you have a quorum,
That's it.
it's a majority of those present and entitled to vote. So if there were 5, we've got a quorum because there's more than 4, and then you need 3 affirmative votes to pass.
I'm good with it then. Just clarification. Thank you.
Good. I don't have any other new business. Old business, we did talk about the finger piers being adjusted. We give the first time free, and the second time the adjustment was only $75, but we realized $75 is still an expense. We're still paying for the majority of it, and we looked at going to $250 for the second adjustment of the finger piers. But we didn't have enough people to take a vote because me and Dan couldn't vote. So I don't know if anybody else wants to have anything else to say about that subject, but
What were those numbers?
it was $75 right now.
For the second?
The second, yeah, the first time's free.
Right. I would just like to repeat what I said at the last meeting on that. I'm neither for or against. I'm really not, but I just for edification, we pay people to do a job. I think part of that job is to take care of the slip holders when they need help. I'm not aware of that we have a lot of people, slip holders that need adjustments, a second adjustment. I'm not aware that that's a real problem yet.
Right, I'm not saying it's a problem, I'm just saying it's an expense that we're taking on that we should just come out at least even at. It costs us money to do that.
Yeah, we have people that we pay. That's part of the
Yeah,
job.
but if you gotta change your day, your structure, and you're not doing the work that we already have prescribed because we have to do a separate job, now we're creating extra work and less effectiveness of our pay, of how we were structuring everything. We have to make sure we don't just leak out pennies and cents, because we got a lot of money we have to build towards to keep the future of this marina going. So that's my point.
I understand, and I'm not opposed to your point. Your point of view is valid. It's just that it just kind of goes against my thinking on pay. People are paid to do whatever the job comes up. So if we're already asking $75 to do a second one, it just seemed like a lot of extra money to go towards $250 or whatever you're talking about. So that's all.
You think about the man hours and the exposure of the barge and the cost of the barge going up and down. You gotta make special trips, because once the barge is out of a certain area, you gotta bring it all the way back up.
That's a lot of work.
It's man hours and time. We gotta be more cognizant of the man hours and time that we use to do different things other than what we're regularly scheduled to do. That's my point on the whole thing.
I got a question for Tim. How do you think the slip holders would react to that? They need to know that information, so we have to get it to them.
Right, yeah. Well, you know, anytime you raise the price on stuff, people tend not to like that. You know, I think Sam kind of, along with Sam's point, I don't know that we do a lot of second times.
Okay.
What gets us concerned is when in March or the beginning of April, people look at the water level and they want to adjust their dock based on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what it's going to be in July.
Right.
Because it's going up from March to July. The amount that it goes up, you don't know, right? So this year we had a lot of comments, so look how low the water is, but when you go on the website that tracks it, we were only off, depending on the day, by 4 inches.
Just looks like a lot.
It looks like a lot,
Yeah,
right?
it can be deceiving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially when there's no boats anymore.
Some days we were actually higher than we were last year at the same date.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all averages, right? So it's whichever way the wind is blowing, and we are a little bit lower than we were last year. But that doesn't mean we won't get a week of rain and we'll be right back where we were. So I think our concern is give it a little bit of time in April, the first part of May, before you decide where you want your finger pier. Now, on the flip side of that, it's a lot easier to adjust them when the boats aren't there. So it's kind of a catch-22 thing there.
Do most folks, when they ask for an adjustment the first time to lower it or raise it, either way, is their boat generally in the water already, or are they saying?
Not necessarily.
It's generally, sometimes not.
Right.
So they don't really, how do they know where they want it?
Well, see, that's the thing, right? A lot of them are basing it on last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're trying to remember how it sat last year.
Mm-hmm.
You come down and you look with no boats out there, and you think, wow, the water's really down. I need to go down.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't know if they were correct until they bring their boat in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we might, the worst one, we changed it 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up where we started.
Of course.
So
So you want to, I know there's not a motion on the table yet, there's just discussion.
Just, yeah,
And you want to go from 75 for the second up to 2,
2 or 250. I mean, that's what real cost is, time and man hours and.
Do we figure it's about $250 cost?
well, you figure at least 2 guys and the barge, and depending on which dock we're doing, it could be 45 minutes.
Mhm.
Depends if it fights us or not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for the board.
Right. And to, like, I agree with Sam, our people are full-time, so they're getting paid to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're,
You're taking away from something else though.
right, if we're raising a dock today,
Right.
we're not painting a dock today.
Right.
Or we're not sweeping up sand, or
Right.
whatever other thing we would have done if we weren't raising it or lowering a dock.
Sure.
But everything's a trade-off, so.
but Dan, I'd like to hear you talk.
Just a comment, and it was brought up for those that weren't here last meeting, I think I brought it up, when you're talking about a slip, or a walkway to a slip, you're talking about a boat on either side of it.
Right.
So if this guy wants it raised, and the other guy, I mean, you have to confront that with the other boat or two.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to contact the opposite side and come to a compromise if they disagree. Sometimes that involves moving a boat, transferring them to somewhere else. We try to keep similar sized boats on the same finger pier, but that doesn't always end up that way.
Well, it seems to me that if you're going to do that just for 2 boats, you got a whole marina full of boats.
Right.
The rest of the boaters might not want that done a second time. They might be perfectly happy with it where they are.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
you just can't choose 2 people and say, okay, we'll raise it up for you. And then all of a sudden, everybody says, whoa, why is the water so high now? You know, or why is it so low now? And, you know, I mean, you got, how many people we got in that marina out there?
Well, there's 600 slips basically, so there's about 300 finger piers,
Yeah.
roughly, plus or minus.
So you can't satisfy 2 people at the expense of the rest of the marina, is my point.
Right.
And,
Yeah, we don't go through and change everything.
Right.
It's on request, right? So you and Sam maybe share a finger pier and you guys decide it'd be better for us if it was down 1 step further. And they'll call the office, we'll put the work order in when we have a couple of them to do. We'll go out there and knock out a couple of them at the same time, because then you got all the equipment on the barge, you just click, 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 right?
Then which person do you charge? The one that requested it, or do they split the cost,
I
or you
think
don't
we
care?
go with who requested it.
Just a further comment, I appreciate everything we've heard. It's helped me kind of decide what direction I'm heading. I could easily support $150, but not $250 or excuse me, whatever. I'm not making a motion on that, but you'd gain my support at $150.
On some of the finger piers, they have, instead of raising the pier, they have an extra set of steps next to their boat.
Correct.
Are those provided by the Port Authority here?
No.
Are those recommended?
Well, I mean, it depends. If your boat is higher than the dock,
Or then the dock can go.
right? I mean, you know,
Most of those are people who want access to the midship because that's the highest point of the boat.
right.
They could go on a lower and walk up the bank, but they just like walking up the pier and walking up.
Yeah.
So,
And that's the style of boat they've got, and
Right.
you know, that's what works for them.
you guys sold a lot of
Yeah, we did.
them.
Yeah.
So,
Is the $75 currently on our list of prices for everything?
Yes.
It is, huh? I don't know if I ever recalled seeing that.
yeah, that's where I got the point
Yeah.
was from there.
So it really wouldn't, if it were to be voted in at 150, maybe like Mr. Ferguson said, it would be starting next season.
Well, you can decide that when you decide to vote it in. You could say effective immediately, you could say effective next year. It just depends on how you word your
However you want to put your
motion. Yeah.
Anybody else? I just wanted to make sure I brought it up. I don't know if anybody wanted to make a motion towards it, but that's what we have.
I'll make a motion that we raise the rate as suggested to $250 for the second time.
Effective.
Next season.
In regards to next season or immediately, how many have we already moved?
I didn't catch that, Chris.
How
It's
many?
a second time?
Well, no. How many, in other words, we've got people that have already lowered for this year.
No, we've probably,
So then, if they've got the expectation in their mind that if I want to come back up at 75
right.
versus if we make it effective
Probably-
immediately,
We've probably moved between 15 and 20 so far.
The first time,
Yeah.
because it's too early in the season to do a second.
sure, of
I
course.
think the motion is from John's, you said for starting next year?
Next
He did.
season, yes.
Yeah.
Because the season's already in, they've already made some adjustments already.
Mhm.
There's a motion, I didn't hear a second. As I said, that's too high for me, I'd go to 150, but
I'd truthfully like to see it higher.
you'd like to see
I'd like
higher?
to see it at 300.
It doesn't, that's okay.
I mean, if we're just at our cost and we're doing the first one for free, my point is that if you want it moved back up, it would be $300, and it would discourage folks from moving multiple times through the year, running our equipment more than maybe is necessary. Tim made a point that we moved one time, 3 times, and ended up at the original spot. So that would be my argument to a little bit higher rate. Just my opinion on it.
I wouldn't want people to forego making an adjustment for safety's sake just because it's a little bit more, it's more expensive now than it would have been. And I said, well, that's too much money. We'll just step higher into the boat or step lower into the boat. I don't know. You know, our job here is to take care, is to provide a good atmosphere for our slip holders.
Same.
Yes, sir.
It's like that right now. Sometimes you gotta step up on your boat,
No, I
sometimes you step
understand.
down your boat. It's like that right now.
Yeah.
It's like that every season.
In here, I support, but not at that, not
Yeah.
at 250 or 300.
Yeah.
I just think that's
It's not, I don't see it being a safety issue,
I don't either.
because the safety issue, will be taken care of that first time it's raised or lowered.
Right.
And then the safety issue is over with.
Well,
And in reality, if you were a boater and you were unsure about your dock level, maybe you wait a little while and you don't move it at the first week of the season, and you see how the water does change come May, June, and then you make your first adjustment. It doesn't cost you anything. There's some marinas that you go to that the docks don't move at all. They're fixed piers. They don't have the ability to move them.
so yours are like that.
Ours are fixed, but there's other locations other than ours. I mean, there's places in Buffalo, there's places where you have floating docks, and floating docks don't appease every boat either. So you make those adjustments, whether you have to John's point, you know, some guys have steps because their dock doesn't go high enough and they need that for their style of boat. So, or they put a ladder on the side and they go down and they board the boat that way. So that would be my point to it. I would certainly go along with John's recommendation of 250 if that was what we'd like to do.
Are you making the second now?
I would make a second if that's still on the table.
You said 350.
No, 250.
He says.
Did I say 350?
You said 350.
Pardon me, 250.
Any other discussion?
I think that this, I'd like to see an individual tally of votes, not just a yea or a nay. Just to make sure who's on board.
No problem.
Do you want me to call the roll?
Sure.
Okay. Yea or nay, Sam Ferguson?
I'd like to pass temporarily.
Okay. Mr. Haynes?
Yay.
Mr. Manor?
Abstain.
Is it Cypers? Cypers.
Yay.
Okay, we have 2 yeas, 1 abstention.
They can't vote.
I didn't pass forever, I just wanted to.
1 abstention, and then Mr. Ferguson.
You only have 2 votes right now.
And 1
You need
abstention.
4.
Sock and Dan can't vote on it.
They can't vote.
And Bruce abstained.
Abstained. I'll give a yea.
3 yeas. So that is a majority of the quorum of 4, so it passes.
That's fine, but that's only 3.
Of 4.
A 4. Only 4 people can vote.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Fair enough.
All right. So that's.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification again.
All right. Anybody else have anything else they'd like to cover? Before.
And that's effective next season.
Correct. Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Adjourn.